Hey, Slater Crusaders, America's the greatest country in the world. Thanks for being here. Coming up in this segment, I want to talk about why many conservatives, including myself, fell for COVID panic early on. I've got to play the clip from DeSantis yesterday. I got to play the best clip of the Olympics. We got a lot to do, but I want to start here. The New York Times yesterday. This is a good just moment to pause and just do a little inventory at the state of our media today. New York Times with a nice take yesterday. Their headline, Osama bin Laden, the fanatical terrorist and the devoted family man. Ah, yes. Osama bin Laden, the devoted family man. Yes. His first wife, his 15-year-old cousin, all the way to his fifth wife, and all 24 children. What a devoted family man he was. So when you take your kids to the park or a soccer game or take your daughter to ballet, I just want you to think, you know what? Wow, I'm a lot like Osama bin Laden. I'm a devoted father. The Navy SEAL who shot him in the head and killed him, he wrote back to the New York Times, yes, family man. He used his wife as a human shield. Lucky for me, he was taller than her. Devoted family man. Not unlike the Washington Post calling the head of ISIS an austere religious scholar. But that's who these leftists are. That's their worldview, calling bin Laden a family man. All right, I'll give you another example of where the media is today. Have you seen this video? I'm sure you have by now, right? We have a woman winning the gold medal in wrestling, and this is a little clip of her post-gold medal winning performance. Here it is.
Last question for you. That American flag around your shoulders looks pretty good. How does that feel to represent your country like this?
It feels amazing. I love representing the U.S. I freaking love living there. I love it, and I'm so happy I get to represent USA. Love it.
Well said. Congratulations. Enjoy that gold, and we'll see you out there on the podium, okay?
Thank you. I'll try not to cry, but no promises.
That's great. She's from Texas, which is why she loves America so much. And I love, she's like, the flag, it's not just draped the flag, she's cuddling it like it's a warm, cuddly blanket. And right before that, she says, oh, it's by the grace of God I'm even able to move my feet. That is just a woman full of joy and loves this country. It's good to see. Now, I saw that moment. This was 2 days ago. 2 days ago? Whatever. I saw it in the afternoon. And I was like, oh, this is amazing. And then my wife and I, we were watching the Olympics that night. And we were about to go to bed. It was getting late. And they said, oh, coming up next, wrestling, women's wrestling, and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, oh, this is the girl who won. Let's stay up and let's watch her win. Okay, it's 6 minutes. Okay, so we'll watch her wrestling match. She wins the gold medal. Great. So then the host of NBC says, okay, we're going to hear from the new champion after the break. So I was like, oh, all right. Really want to go to bed, but all right, we'll watch the stupid commercials and we'll come back and I'll watch the interview. And I told my wife, I said, wife, you got to watch. I already saw it, right? I already saw that clip before. So it's like, wife, you got to stay up. You got to watch this. It's great, great, wonderful, patriotic moment. So we watched the interview. They played maybe 3 minutes of it. It was pretty long. They played 3 minutes of it. They cut that part out. NBC cut out that part of their primetime coverage. I stood there watching it with wife, and I said, what are we? They took out the whole God and country part. Like it never happened. Why would you cut out what may be the best part of the entire Olympics so far? That's another testament to the state of our media today. Friendly reminder that patriotism's good. Patriotism's a good thing. Don't be ashamed of it. As Jesse Kelly said, if you love your country, you'll take care of it. You'll work to make it better. If you hate it, then you won't. Just imagine a country full of this wrestler, women like this, who we just saw. Look at that. Joy, loving it. Or a country full of people like this. This is the hammer thrower who hates America, says she's ashamed of USA on her uniform, and got 11th place out of 12. Who do you want more of? I don't know. You see stories like this, and it's hard. It's not hard, actually. It's not hard to come to the conclusion that people in the media hate this country. Or they're more like her than the gold medalist. All right. Final media story. The White House and the media have been calling out Florida for Florida's terrible COVID response and denial and blah, 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 saying Florida hasn't been vaccinating people and how terrible and awful. And it turns out Florida has a higher vaccination rate for people over 65, which is the age that matters, than California, New York, New Jersey. All right, people just a bunch of total hacks hoping that you don't find out the truth, which is why I'm glad you're here, to know the truth, to find the truth. DeSantis also hit back, which is awesome. Here's a little bit of it.
It's not just from Mexico. In fact, it's rarely from Mexico. You have over 100 different countries where people are pouring through. Not only are they letting them through, they're then farming them out all across our communities across this country, putting them on planes, putting them on buses. Do you think they're being worried about COVID for that? Of course not. So he's facilitating. Who knows what new variants are out there, but I can tell you whatever variants are around the world, they're coming across that southern border. And so he's not shutting down the virus, he's helping to facilitate it in our country. And law-abiding citizens have to produce proof of their medical records just to go to the gym or attend an event or just to participate in everyday society. He wants that, but yet if you want to vote, he thinks it's too much of a burden to show a picture ID when you're voting. So no voter ID, but have to show your medical papers just to be able to live in everyday life? Give me a break. And so I think the question is we can either have a free society or we can have a biomedical security state. And I can tell you, Florida, we're a free state.
Perfection. He's going to make a great president in 3 years. And also, I'll just say this now, and maybe we can do an analysis on this later. He has Trump hands. He uses his hands just like Trump. You do a side by side of him and Trump, and he uses the hands the exact same way. There's something there. I remember DeSantis was asked a little bit ago what his biggest regret was with COVID, and he said shutting down in the first place. He said the initial 2 weeks was his great regret. He's like, listen, we didn't know, and things were moving fast, and we didn't know what to do. So it's like, okay, let's do 2 weeks. He said, no, we shouldn't even have done that in the first place. Which leads me to my musings here for a moment. Let's do some musings on the TV. Usually we muse on the radio, but today we're going to muse on the TV. I was thinking the other day, why did many conservatives, myself included, fall for the COVID fear-mongering in the beginning? You know, all week we've talked about humility and how I'd like to see just an ounce of it from the left, from the media, from the CDC. I'll admit it that I fell for it all early on. And I was wondering the other day, why did I miss it? Why did I fall for it? Here's what I got. First, we are a bored people. We're a bored people. And the idea of living in a high-stakes moment was exciting. We're bored. We say we're busy, but we've really just busied ourselves. We're pretty numb to life. And a pandemic was exciting in a very primal way. It made life high stakes again. Life back in the day was high stakes. Every move mattered, right? Everything mattered. There were always diseases. There were neighboring, warring tribes coming to kill you all the time. You had to hunt for your food or else you did not eat. And if it did not rain, then your crops did not grow and you died. It's pretty high stakes. Everything was like that. Today, everything is max comfort. Everything is comfortable. Everything is safe. Everything is sanitized. Everything is predictable. Food is always present. The grocery store always looks like this, right? That's what the grocery store looks like all the time. That's not normal. That's not real life. Food doesn't just appear. Like kids today think food, and we've been tricked to think that food just shows up on shelves like that, automatically. Like it's like the food grows in the shelf. That's not real life. We're entertained by movies and TV shows of dramatic things, right? That's why we like that's why we're entertained by certain movies where the stakes are high. But we watch it while we live our air-conditioned lives, right? We watch movies of people in high-stakes situations, but nothing we do is of high stakes. Then, and I think our primal part of our brains and our psyches feel that that boredom, we're like uncomfortable or something. It's like not fulfilling living such a dull life compared to what we were made for. But then a global pandemic was coming and things got real, right? It was game on. It was exciting. And I think people bought into it. I did. And I think a lot of conservatives, I think it's because conservatives have prepared for a scenario just like this, right? A lot of conservatives, myself included, were like, I got my guns, I got my emergency food, I have everything I need. Let's do this. I told you, everyone who's been laughing at me, I told you something like this was gonna happen and I'm prepared for it. Maybe people watched a little too much Walking Dead or watched that movie on Netflix, that Sandra Bullock movie where you can't open your eyes outside or the monster will kill you or whatever, right? And all these shows and things where people are high stakes. And now here we are where going to the grocery store wasn't just going to the grocery store. It was dangerous. It was dangerous. It was risky. It was unknown. Was there even food there? It was our modern version of hunting, right? It was a little bit of danger, getting food. For the first time, 36 years of my life of eating, I've never had a dangerous pursuit for food. But going to the grocery store now was finally, for the first time ever, it was exciting. It was eerie. Do you remember? It was eerie. It looked like that. You're like, oh, like what's going on? There may not even be anything there. It was a little bit risky, a little bit dangerous. There was an invisible enemy out there. You had to wrap yourself up and be prepared. Like you're going into combat. You had to be a little bit brave, even. Or at least a cheap version of bravery. And they may be out of meat. Maybe an unsuccessful hunt. But I'm going to do it anyway. I could die, but I'll risk it for my family. I think conservatives, a lot of them were like, I got this. I'll protect you, family. I'll protect you from the social unrest that is to come. I'll protect you from crazed maniacs fighting over toilet paper. And then it took a while for conservatives to say, this is all pretty silly. Now, many conservatives weren't tricked at all. Kudos to you. I think a lot of people took a minute to come around. Lesson learned. But what are we dealing with now? Right? The people who are still freaking out. My daughter had a ballet. She's 3.5. She had ballet yesterday. 8 little girls. They're all wearing masks. So what's going on now? Progressives are still playing a game. It's a different game, though. They're keeping this party going, this panic going, for 2 reasons. First, their desire for a savior. COVID has become a works-based religion. They're praying at the altar of COVID. Fauci, Biden, the whole gang. And to keep from falling ill to the sin of COVID, they have to perform works. It's very similar to critical race theory, right? Very popular among people who need a religion, who need an idol to worship, who need a purpose to live. And the second reason the panic keeps going is because of people's desire for control. To either control others or to be controlled. There's different personalities, right? Some people like to be in control, some people like to be controlled, and COVID's perfect for both. So just another friendly reminder to not be manipulated by the media, trying to convince you that Osama bin Laden was a devoted family man. to stand up against the lies like DeSantis is doing, to love this country like our American wrestler does, and to never fall for it again. Because it's the only way that the madness will ever stop. Coming up next, we'll talk about the CDC extending the eviction moratorium. What? I'm grateful you're here. We have another way of watching us as well, not just wherever you're watching us now, but also on your phone. We have a great app. It's the best app I have. Just click it. All the videos are right there. Super easy to scroll through. You find the video you want, click it, boom, it plays. There's no ads. You have to sit there for 30 seconds. Wait. Totally free, super easy to use, and everything and everyone is right there. Join us over there, please. Free download in the App Store. Mike Slater, true story. Spread the word. Hey, Slater Crusaders. How many branches of government do we have now? Are we keeping score at home? We need to keep track of it. It used to be 3. There were 3: legislative, judicial, and executive. But now we have the WHO. That's one of our. The CDC. So that's 5. At least 5. Fauci's his own branch. So that's 6 branches of government that we have. So I saw someone on Twitter, they said, my favorite episode of Schoolhouse Rock is the one about how the CDC makes laws and can now take private property without just compensation. Did you ever see that episode of Schoolhouse Rock? So here's the background. There's been an eviction moratorium, which is such a progressive buzzword expression, right? Eviction moratorium. Legalized home theft is what we've had. Apparently, landlords in America, people who own the homes, they don't really own them. That's just and people could just not pay rent and not get kicked out of their house. I'm so far on the side of landlords when it comes to rental property. It's so simple to me. It's not your house. Renter, it's not yours. You sign a contract to the terms of your rental, and they have terms, you have terms, and then everybody's got to agree with those terms. But I'm sure that one of those terms is you got to pay. And if you don't pay, they kick you out because now you're just stealing. It should be that simple. But we've had this ridiculous eviction moratorium for a year, and it ran out. Okay, it ran out. No more. No. So now you can kick squatters off your property legally now. Oh, thank you. Thank you for allowing me. Thank you for allowing me. I feel you got to ask the government permission to go to Chili's. Government, am I allowed to go to Chili's today? And then we got to ask the government, am I allowed to kick this squatter out of my house? So the eviction moratorium ran out. Congress did not re-up it. Biden said he couldn't. Right? He's like, I can't sign an executive order on this. So the CDC just did it themselves, which is not a thing. Here's what they said. They said the U.S. Centers for Disease and Control, which is weird too because that's not what the CDC stands for. So they issued this memo. This is super bizarre. At the top of the memo, it says Centers for Disease Control and Prevention Department, which is what the CDC really stands for. But then the beginning of their summary, they say the U.S. Centers for Disease and Control, which is not what the CDC is, but also more accurate for what the CDC is. Anyway, is issuing a new order temporarily halting evictions in counties with heightened levels of community transmission. You can't do that. So their claim is that if you evict someone, so you own a house and they're not paying, you evict them, then that person can become homeless and spread COVID, which, by the way, didn't you expect to see just piles of homeless people dead in the streets from COVID? That was one of the fears, right? Why are homeless people not dying? Or I don't know. What are the rates of homeless people dying from COVID? Must be their strong immune systems keeping them safe. So they become homeless and then they spread COVID, or you evict them, they move to another state, and then they spread COVID there. So it's better just to keep people in their homes, even if it's, not theirs. So the obvious question is, can the CDC do this? And the obvious answer is no. No, they definitely can't. And here's what's so bizarre. Like this, I get these like weird Twilight Zone moments. like the threat of lockdowns again. It's like where am I? What are you talking about? And this is one of those Twilight Zone moments. It's like, oh no, you guys, you can't do that, CDC. And everyone knows they can't. This is Joe Biden admitting to it.
The bulk of the constitutional scholarship says that it's not likely to pass constitutional muster, number one. But there are several key scholars who think that it may, and it's worth the effort. Whether that option will pass constitutional measure with this administration, I can't tell you. I don't know. There are a few scholars who say it will, and others who say it's not likely to. But at a minimum, by the time it gets litigated, it will probably give some additional time while we're getting that $45 billion out to people who are, in fact, behind in the rent and don't have the money.
Oh, that's so amazing. Wow, I've never seen that, where a president says, yeah, what I'm about to do is definitely illegal. But it's going to take time for the courts to settle it. So in the meantime, we're just going to do it anyway. That's amazing. Never seen that before. The president's saying that what he's doing is unconstitutional, but we're going to do it anyway. And here's the thing. He says, like, oh, well, we're going to let the courts determine whether or not we're allowed to. No, you're not allowed to, according to the Constitution. Like, we already have the rules. You don't need to. We're not asking the courts to make the rules. You know. Now, of course, presidents have done unconstitutional things, and of course, presidents have done unconstitutional things that they knew was unconstitutional, but they've never said it out loud, right? Like Obama knew that Obamacare was unconstitutional, but he didn't publicly say out loud that it's unconstitutional. That's the first time I've ever seen a president say that what they're doing is unconstitutional, but they're going to do it anyway. So as I see this is an ask for forgiveness, not permission moment. That's what this is. This is ask for permission, ask for forgiveness, not permission, which people live their lives by because they think that's a clever expression or something, but that's not good to do that. How many terrible principles do we live by because they have a short, pithy saying with it that's like easy to say? Right? Beauty is in the eye of the beholder. No, it's not. There's objective beauty standards. Beauty is not in the eye of the beholder. The ends, so you can finish the sentence, the ends justify the means. No, they don't. They definitely don't. You cannot achieve moral ends without moral means. Ask for forgiveness, not permission. No, that's a terrible way to live your life. If you want to be known as an untrustworthy, deceitful person, then I guess it's okay. And it's all fun and games until someone does that to you. I've never seen a president operate like that. Ask for forgiveness, not permission. But the real story here is bureaucratic bloat. More than bloat. Bloat's not the right word. There's a major problem in our government that is impossible to unwind. And that's why I don't even like talking about it, because it's permanent now and there's no going back. And there's nothing you can do about it. It's the fact that the legislative branches have outsourced their job to the point where they don't even do anything anymore. They give these powers to bureaucracies who write the rules however they see fit. The problem with this is you don't vote for bureaucrats. You didn't vote for the CDC director, and you can't vote the CDC director out of office. These bureaucrats are not accountable to the people. You don't elect the people in this building. I think we put up the picture of the CDC building. That's not the Capitol building. That's not the Capitol building. Our founders did not envision a system where there's no accountability of people who rule over you. You cannot have a government. We cannot live in a government under a government where the CDC director can unilaterally ban landlords from people stealing their property from them. What in the world is going on? Let me say that again, because that's such a bizarre sentence. I wrote a bizarre sentence on Twitter the other day. It was like, why is no one talking about me having antibodies so that I'm allowed to go eat in a restaurant? And you're like, oh, that's a ridiculous sentence I never thought I'd ever write. Can you please test my antibodies so I can eat? And same thing here. Like, no, you can't have the CDC director ban landlords from people stealing their homes. What are we doing? But Congress people for decades now have given more and more power to these bureaucrats because their goal has been achieved, and that is less and less accountability for them. So they're happy with it. They're a bunch of cowards, and it's been this way for decades, and there's no going back. You can't take that power back once it's gone. You'll never, listen, if there's still a federal Department of Education, there's no way. If Trump couldn't get rid of it, and if COVID couldn't get rid of it, if the fact that there hasn't been public education for a year and a half can't get rid of the federal Department of Education, nothing's getting rid of the federal Department of Education. And nothing's going to get rid of the CDC, and their powers are only going to grow. Now, check this out. I got to run here, but check this out. This is someone from the Business Insider. The new 60-day CDC eviction moratorium carries steep criminal penalties for individual landlords who break the law. So first of all, this isn't a law. You with me? I don't think the CDC can make law. But what are the penalties? So it says up to $100,000 fine and 1 year in jail if the eviction doesn't result in death. $250,000 fine and 1 year in jail if the evicted person dies. Wait, what? I may be reading this wrong, but if you evict someone and they die of COVID, it actually doesn't even say that. Like if they die with COVID, right? Okay, let's say you evict someone. They get in a car accident. They test positive for COVID. Can you be fined $250,000 for evicting them from your house? Is that what that is? So if you evict someone and they die, you're a murderer. I got to go. We got great guests coming up. I'll end with this. Here's the true story. This is yesterday's USA Today's cover. Big bold letters right at the top. When should liberty yield to public good? Never. True story. Mike Slater. Spread the word. Hey, Slater Crusaders, tomorrow's special is all about China wanting to take over the world. We're going to start off talking with the former acting director of Homeland Security. I talk about the Belt and Road Initiative, which very few people understand, but when you do, you'll be in that top 1%. You got to understand China's Belt and Road Initiative. The next segment we're going to do is about the genocide that's going on in China, committed by the communist government against the Muslim Uyghur population in Western China. And the third segment is about China's social, the spreading of their culture around the world and in America through their control of Hollywood and of big tech. And the segment we're going to do right now is a preview for all three of those segments that we're going to do on tomorrow's special. It's perfect. Kara Frederick is here. She's a research fellow for the Center for Technology Policy at the wonderful Heritage Foundation. Kara, how are you today?
I'm great. Thanks for having me, Mike.
Great to talk to you. So tell us about this. Well, let's go big picture first. What have you seen when it comes to big tech YouTube censorship?
Oh, what haven't I seen when it comes to big tech YouTube censorship from people with heterodox views, people who would consider themselves classical liberals who just have ideas outside of the mainstream. And when I say the mainstream, I mean the culture, like you said, Hollywood, not necessarily enthralled to China, but enthralled to a leftist ideology that we see in the academy, we see in the entertainment industry, we see in big corporations and big tech. When people have views that fall outside of that, the mainstream media, you see these tech companies so readily engaged in suppressing that information and stifling that information and limiting access or cutting it off altogether to that specific information when it comes to COVID and what these big tech companies are calling misinformation. You see that all the time. And that runs the gamut, like I said, from heterodox views to the right to regular conservatives like myself who are just expressing something that is maybe outside of what the New York Times or the Washington Post is telling you. So the litany of instances where this happens goes on and on and on. And we could talk about it ad nauseum, but that's just sort of a broad brush of what's going on.
Yep. And it's going to get worse. And then we saw the White House the other day saying that they're working, they're telling big tech who to censor, which is even more troubling. Well, tell us about this one instance of who this account that YouTube banned.
So when it comes to, are you talking about the China instance, the Kazakh human rights? Okay, so this is a really interesting case because we've seen it happen on the domestic side. We've seen moms who don't want to mask their children and think that it should be up to the parents be censored on YouTube. But this is going beyond that. This is coming to down to international human rights issues. We know that what's happening in the Xinjiang region of China, where the Uyghur minority is being held in concentration camps to the tune of 1 to 1.5 million Uyghurs. So a human rights activist set about documenting this. And what he did was create a channel for loved ones of those who are imprisoned in Xinjiang to share their stories, to get it out there into the world. And what YouTube did was they ended up taking down his channel because he, according to YouTube, violated their policy for personally identifiable information. Now, they had permission to share this information from family members on the YouTube channel. And what this highlights here is not just YouTube building an airplane in mid-flight. As when I worked at Facebook, we constantly told everyone that we were doing because we were sort of making these policies up as we went along due to the changing nature of the landscape. So it's not just a case of YouTube doing that, but instead it's their guidelines, their opaque rules being manipulated by third parties. So we can't prove just yet that the Chinese Communist Party was behind any of this, but it sort of highlights the murkiness of all and how YouTube itself can be exploited because they don't enforce their rules consistently. Their rules are opaque. They tend to sort of decide day by day what they should do. So with this channel, the man who started it, the Kazakh Human Rights Channel, basically had to move all of these videos that documented the atrocities in Xinjiang over to a different platform because YouTube wouldn't house them because their system was gamed. They were manipulated into taking these videos down. So it sort of just shows how this hangs on the edge of a knife.
I don't want to blow past this because this is a huge deal here. Let's really break down what this is. You have someone documenting a genocide that's taking place today. Everyone talks about never again. It's like, give me a break. It's happening right now. So this guy's documenting it properly. I don't know if you've seen his videos like accurately. Is it an accurate page?
Yep. So the family members attest to the veracity of the information that are on these channels. So you see the CCP is waging a counter war on Twitter. I don't know if you've seen some of those videos where they say, "Oh, nothing going on here in Xinjiang. We're so happy. Uyghurs are great. We are widely loved in China." Not true whatsoever. So to contest that with true information, this is why this man created the Kazakh Human Rights Channel.
Yeah. So genocide going on right now. Here's a guy saying, hey, here's what's going on. And YouTube, surely, I won't put this in your mouth, but surely at the behest of the communist government, said, no, the world is not allowed to see these videos and this truth of a genocide. And I'm so glad you brought up like masks on kids or something like, and I think it's a very big deal, but this is a human rights, like maybe one of the biggest genocides ever taking place right now, and not allowed to see it, as determined by the communist government through San Francisco big tech company. That's an amazing thing that's happening right now. What has YouTube said about it?
So they basically say, we're looking into this. We did it for a very hard, specific reason. It kind of conjures up what happened with Twitter and Facebook and the New York Post when Facebook said the New York Post breaking of the Hunter Biden laptop story, it violated our hacked materials policy. They're sort of, this is YouTube, a different platform, but they're sort of hiding under the same idea. They're trying to say, oh, it violates a very specific version of our policy, and that is the we can't have personally identifiable information on our platform. Yet family members gave consent. This was all done by the book. And I think what is important to highlight here is the CCP is very clever. And the problem coming down the ridgeline is basically there's a blending of the strategic intent by state actors, in this case, the party state, the CCP, China, with activists and patriotic netizens, as we sort of call them in the tech policy community. So these are people acting at the behest of the CCP, but they're not directly linked to the CCP. You're not going to find the receipts or the money exchanged in any sort of way, because the Chinese Communist Party is extremely clever in recruiting, these citizens both in and outside of China to do this. They're effectively acting as chaos agents on behalf of the CCP and trying to figure out ways to make a holistic approach, like you said, to take over the world. And in this instance, information control, pushing propaganda, and they do it very, very cleverly. And tech companies are right now not equipped to contend with this, and they need to be.
My last question for you, Kara. Let's paint the alternative, because these tech companies are not American companies. I forget someone said that about Apple. I forget who it was. And they're like, Apple's not an American company. First of all, they're technically headquartered in Ireland for tax reasons. 75% of the big tech workforce in San Francisco is foreign born. And they make their products in China and for world markets. Like, they're barely American. And they don't have American values. So if these were truly American companies, not just located here, but values, had American values, what would a YouTube or Facebook and all the rest, what would they do with something like this?
They would stand up for the freedom of expression. I mean, when I worked at Facebook, we were constantly told to retain a cognition of the fact that our global user base was huge. 86% at the time of our users were outside the United States and Canada. This is what Americans don't often understand. These companies don't see themselves as American companies. They might provide lip service to conservative lawmakers, but in the end, they're worried about their bottom line, and they're worried about servicing a user base that's global. An American company would say, no, we are standing up for our American values, for freedom of expression. We see that this value transfer is going in the wrong direction. Instead of China becoming more like us, we are becoming more like China. They should vehemently stand against it. They should articulate that they are American companies and stand for what we love best in America, the freedom of expression. There's a reason why the First Amendment involves freedom of speech. And these private companies working with the government to stifle speech, it portends some very interesting, I'd say, legal issues for these companies when they're treading into potential First Amendment violation territory. So they need to become American companies. As others have said, they need to pick a flag, and that should be the red, white, and blue.
Yeah, the First TV is an American company. That's why we're called the First Amendment. And so is the Heritage Foundation. Kara Frederick from Heritage. Wonderful, Kara. Thanks for your time.
Thanks for having me, Mike.
Great insight. Coming up next, we'll talk a quick little recap or update on the recall of Governor Newsom here in California. And there's implications for the whole country when it comes to mail-in ballots here. We'll talk about that next. True story. Mike Slater, spread the word. Hey, Slater Crusaders. So I live in San Diego. We are a little over 5 weeks away from the recall election of our governor, Gavin Newsom. September 14th is the big day. There's two questions on the ballot. First, do you want to recall Gavin Newsom, yes or no? The second question is, if 50.1% of people say they want to recall him, who would you want to replace him with? And there's a list of how many ever candidates. Whoever wins that, they're the governor in like 2 days. So you could win technically with 10% of the vote. It's just whoever gets first place, you're the winner. And Larry Elder right now is in the lead there. And I just saw a poll this morning that 51% of likely voters, I think it was likely voters, want to recall Gavin Newsom. So it's close, but there's a twist to it. And that's what has national implications. Mike Cargile's here. He ran for Congress in district up in LA, and he's also with the Election Integrity Project. Mike, how are you, brother?
I'm doing so good. Thanks for having me on, Mike.
I'm glad you're here. Let's just spend like 1 minute on the race itself. Do you think Gavin Newsom will be recalled?
Yes, I do. I do believe he is damaged goods. I think right now he's doing more damage to the Democratic Party than they want. And it's only a 1-year term we're talking about for whoever replaces him. So I think they're content with letting him go. Because also remember, they control both houses of the legislature with a supermajority. So there's really nothing the new governor can do.
What's their play? So if, let's say they sacrificial lamb him and he's gone and Larry Elder's the governor. They just say, oh, we'll beat him in the next election.
Well, I think what they're trying to do is set up sort of a straw man. I don't think it's going to be Larry Elder. I think because I know how fraudulent the whole system is right now. I think there's a much darker choice coming, but in any event, they're going to prop them up and then they're going to destroy them because they're not going to be able to veto anything. So for the next year, they're just literally going to beat this person up and then they're going to hold him up as an abject failure and say, see, you should have listened to us.
Yeah, I'm not opposed to any of that. I would think Newsom would be recalled until I heard about the automatic mail-in ballots, which is what has national implications here. So how are they running this election in California?
Well, Mike, they're running it with the same machines, the same mail-in ballots, the same ballot harvesting, everything. The same process that put Gavin Newsom in office is there right now for the special election. It's the same process that stole the election from President Trump. It is completely manipulated, and I believe it's already been decided what's going to happen. Everything I've seen and heard indicates he will be recalled. We will have a new governor, and it will probably be Caitlyn Jenner.
There's the bold hot take.
There you go.
Why would they want to do that?
Say again?
Why would they want Caitlyn Jenner?
Well, let me back up. I have the ability, sort of like Rush Limbaugh, to think like a liberal. So if you take all morality out of your headspace, everything that makes common sense, it's an utter black hole. Out of that hole emerges Caitlyn Jenner. Because if I were a Democrat leading this charge, and they completely control this electoral process, I would hold up a candidate that would utterly demoralize Christians and conservatives, that would destroy everything they had as far as trust in the system. And I would prop Caitlyn Jenner up for the next year, and then I would destroy him publicly. And then I would say, see, you should have listened to us.
That would be a play. Now, yeah. Let's talk about the fraud of the mail-in ballots, because it's so easy with the mail-in and automatic mail-in just to all registered voters and illegal immigrants as well, because of the motor voter laws here in California. But just help everyone understand, because if it's happening in California, it's going to happen everywhere else soon.
Absolutely.
One of the biggest examples of voter fraud.
Right, and they're rolling this out now via HR1 and S1. See, California is driving the nation. Everything that happens here goes coast to coast, and then they try and federalize it. So what you just said was absolutely perfect. The mail-in ballots, no signature verification, the DMV, we have the most bloated voter rolls you can ever imagine. That we allow ballot stuffing. It is insanity here. And here's the reality. When you have an utterly simple process like voting and you add complexity to it, you're simply trying to cover something up. And I'm part of a lawsuit with the Election Integrity Project that's going to tear this whole thing down, because we're targeting about 21 rules, regulations, and statutes in California that enable this whole fraudulent process.
We got to run, unfortunately. Let's talk again, Mike, as we get a little closer to the big day. Mike Cargile with Election Integrity Project, who we've worked with a lot in the past. Thanks, Mike.
Thank you so much for having me. God bless you.
Yep. Let me explain real quick. The motor voter law is when you get a driver's license, then you are automatically registered to vote. That's it. And then after that, they gave driver's licenses to illegal immigrants and said, oh no, we won't register them to vote. And they did. Hey, big special tomorrow about China, the China threat. Don't miss it. True story. Mike Slater, spread the word.